Okay, so when talking about shading, what you're really talking about is control of your medium. In almost every medium, the more pigment you put down, the darker it gets. The less pigment you put down, the lighter it gets. If you press harder, you get more pigment. If you press lighter, you get less pigment. The harder you press, the darker it gets. Up to a point, because the lead is only so dark. So, I'm going to color in from here to here, and I'm going to gradually press less on there. Gradually pressing less. And when I get here, it's a pretty nice little gradient. Now, say I want the gradient to get wider. This is where it gets a little bit more difficult, a little bit complicated. This is standard shading, right? I'm making it a little bit worse just to kind of exaggerate it. But if you do that, where you make the same gradient next to it, there's almost always this line between the two because they don't exactly match. So there's a couple ways to get rid of that. One is to go through and painstakingly match it. And the best way to match it is by using little circles, not lines. And you can make it pretty nice. Get it right on there. Or you can be lazy like me and use a blending stomp. This is called a blending stomp because of its size. Any size, they're called a smudge stick. At this size, they're called a blending stomp. When they're a little bit smaller, like a Q-tip almost, they're called a tortillion. Speaking of Q-tips, Q-tips make great tortillions, especially when you're using different colors. You do not want to use the same tortillion for each color group, because if you do that, you'll contaminate your colors and it will not look good. Anyway, that's traditionally what is expected of you in when shading stuff, is by just pressing harder and getting more. Now, say you want to do it a different way, which I do almost every time because it's more fun this way. There is another way of doing it called cross-hatching. Now, the more pigment you put down in an area, the darker it looks, so that still applies, but now we're doing it with these marks here. These individual marks are called hatches. When they cross over each other, they're called cross-hatching. Cross-hatches. Now, the more hatches go over an area, the darker the area gets. The fewer hatches go over an area, the lighter the area gets. And you can get really subtle with it. You can get some really nice, good, clean gradients. And people love cross-hatching. Cross-hatching is very popular amongst people that look at art. If you want to see the best cross-hatching out there, in my opinion, I would recommend going on Google and looking up Bernie Wrightson Frankenstein. Bernie Wrightson was a comic book artist. He passed away, I think, in like 2015, I think. Somewhere around there. I was really hoping to meet him at Comic-Con some year, but that's fine. I can learn a lot from the works he left behind. Okay, now there's that. That's cross-hatching. The next one is what I use a lot because I'm kind of known for doing one-line contour drawings. It's called Scrabble shading. You just have one squiggly lines, right? The more squiggly lines you have, the darker it gets. You vary the amount of squiggly lines until you have a bit of an implied gradient from your squiggly lines. And that's how I like to do it a lot of times because it's fun, it's got so much character, and you can really make something pop. Now, my least favorite one is what I believe should be everyone's least favorite one. It's called stippling. I'm not going to stipple for very long. Where you put dots down, and the more dots you have, the darker the area gets. The fewer dots you have, the lighter the area gets. I really hate it, and I think most people do too. It takes forever, and I just don't get any kind of like zen from it. You know, I don't really get anything from it. A lot of people do, I guess. A lot of people do like stippling. I like the look that stippling obtains, but stippling also offers a major problem when using this kind of pen. So this type of pen, this illustration pen, it's got a felt tip inside of a metal ferrule. The ferrule is that little metal part that holds the felt tip straight. So that's my stippling right there. So if you stipple too much, it pushes the felt tip back into the ferrule, and there's no way to get it out. So you just wasted the pen, which, you know, it's not that bad. This pen was $2.19, but I don't like wasting money, and I go through these pens pretty fast anyway. So that's different methods of shading. If you want to see more different methods of shading, I would recommend checking out How to Rendering in Pen and Ink by Anthony Guptill. It's called the Guptill book in most art circles, and it has been around for, I want to say, like 100 years. I have the 70th anniversary one, but that one was like that one was old when I got it anyway, so it's probably like 100 years now.